Hi, everyone. Welcome back to episode 3 of Trauma Informed Talk with Coach Gabby. I'm Coach Gabby. I hope you're having a great week. My intention for this week, I set an intention, and it is to have fun. I want to have fun this week. I want to encourage people to have fun this week. I want to provide fun this week. And I want to be funny this week throughout life. That's sort of my goal. I just really want to embrace the fun in life this week. And so that's my intention. What's yours? What is your intention for this week? What do you hope to feel throughout the week and you want to manifest right now? Is it more money? Is it positivity? Is it time with friends? You decide and manifest it, and I guarantee it will happen this week. I'm already having fun because this weekend I had a sleepover with my godson. He is the most fun human that has ever lived. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw the little video I posted yesterday. All of my equipment is covered in silly string. If you're a grown up and you're like, man, I just haven't had some childlike fun in a long time, treat yourself to a can of silly string. I'm telling you, $1.29 at Dollar General. You do all the gags from the movie Big, achoo, and you shoot out your nose. He thought that was the funniest thing he's ever seen. Man, silly string, it was a blast from the past. I told him we couldn't clean it all up. I'm like, don't clean it all up. You have to leave it on the walls. He's like, why would we leave silly string on the walls? I'm like, because then people know we had fun. Silly string is a sign of fun. Oh, oops, oh my God, that comes off.
I hope oh my God.
So today I wanted to talk about, I actually had an intention to talk about trauma related to grief and the dying process and being a part of the dying process with a family member, a friend, as a caregiver. But I actually had a comment on my Instagram page over the weekend about a video, the first podcast I did, the one where it was an introduction podcast. And I mentioned slightly about the trauma of being misdiagnosed bipolar for so long, being treated as someone who had bipolar for so long, to then find out I didn't have bipolar, I had these other two things. And then when I found out the proper diagnoses, along with 3 years of very intensive trauma-informed therapy and OCD therapy, I finally reached mental wellness and true happiness in life, right? So I talked about that a little bit in the first episode, and I had a comment over the weekend, and I'm using my phone to film, and I should have had my iPad here, but basically the comment was, I watched your post, I followed you for a while, I've been a fan of you talking openly about your bipolar disorder. I can't remember if they said they also had bipolar disorder. And then something along the lines of, I was upset to see that you felt being labeled bipolar was traumatic, like that bipolar was the bad thing. And then she said something like, but then you ended it with, you're perfect just the way you are. So I'm confused. And so I just wanted to, if other people watched the first episode and were like, wait a minute, I've been following you for years and all you talked about was bipolar disorder and you were confused. I just felt like I should address this, right? And then on top of that, I would say the most comments that I got regarding that first video were people saying to me, thank you for talking about the trauma of misdiagnosis. So I know I am correct in doing what I'm doing because there are so many of us out there, and it is very, very frustrating to be treated for the wrong thing. I would give you the example of your doctor is treating you for asthma for 5 years, but you had lung cancer, right? And you weren't getting the right help you needed. You did everything your doctor asked. You took every medicine, every inhaler pump, but it wasn't doing anything. You weren't getting the results. You were still getting worse and worse. And they realized they diagnosed you wrong. It had been lung cancer from the beginning. So you can see where a misdiagnosis could be traumatic. If it makes it easier when it's a physical ailment, but even with mental ailments, it's very frustrating. So first I want to comment on bipolar disorder. So first and foremost, I have been treated for bipolar disorder for 20 years. I feel that treatment, being a member of the community, I will always be a member of the bipolar community. even though at the end of the day, that's not the diagnosis on my medical chart, I lived 20 years as a woman with bipolar disorder. So I am a member of that community, even if it's not on my medical chart at this time. Okay. Like I have gone through every medicine, treatments, living day to day as someone with bipolar. So I feel still so rooted in that community. On top of that, the bipolar community is a community that I still stand with and plan to advocate for. One thing that I think is really important, and I have been talking about this in my live talk. So if you've seen me in the last 6 months to a year, you've probably heard me say this. Because I was treated for bipolar for 20 years, and then in the last 2 years, finally getting treated for ADHD and autism, among also with my trauma and OCD. Those are the 4 things I get treated for right now. The treatment for autism and ADHD is so different than the treatment for bipolar disorder. Yet, if you look at a chart of all the symptoms of bipolar and the symptoms of ADHD and autism, they're very similar. There's a lot of overlap. I mean, there's almost like a 90% overlap. Okay, so two separate disorders, almost all the same symptoms, the treatment so different. I can't speak to anyone else who has bipolar disorder, so I'm going to speak to the treatment I received with bipolar disorder. From minute 1, it was loading me full of as many pills as they could, psychotropic drugs, or antipsychotics as they called them, Geodone, Seroquel. I was on way more than that. Abilify, Lamictal, lithium, you name it. I was a guinea pig for every drug for bipolar disorder. When those drugs weren't enough, when those drugs couldn't stop my energy, they added more drugs. Ativan, Klonopin, Xanax. When those drugs couldn't stop my energy, I still wasn't sleeping on 600 milligrams of Geodone, 1,200 milligrams of Seroquel, Klonopin, Xanax. I'm still not sleeping. They give me a drug called Lunesta, and that still couldn't stop my energy. I still couldn't sleep. So my psychiatrist called the manufacturer and got me double the dosage of Lunesta. And finally, I could sleep maybe for 6 hours. Okay. So like through all of that, all those meds, not once did any doctor ever humble themselves and go, could I be wrong? Why isn't this medicine working on this patient? Nope, they labeled me bipolar and they were sticking with it. So right there, I'm just going to talk about the trauma of all the medicine that I was a guinea pig for, all the medicine that they thought would help me and it never helped me, all the medicine that took the light out of my eye, still didn't help me sleep, didn't help me feel better about myself, was pushing me into probably the worst depression I've ever been into. So that's just one. The medicine that comes with bipolar disorder versus autism, ADHD. Often with like if you're like a level 1 autistic person or you own your own business with ADHD, like right now, I mean, my doctors are like, do you like, you are in charge of you. So you tell us, do you need meds? Yeah, I mean, it's wild. It is wild. But like, I'm not a guinea pig for medicine over in this camp. Over here, just give it. Even when it didn't work, give it. That was traumatic. Also, I developed I think it's called TDK, tardive kinesia, where I chew my tongue. Yeah, the results from all the antipsychotics I took. That's traumatic. That was traumatic. So it's not about being bipolar, it's the way they treat people with bipolar disorder. And I want to advocate for that. I want to say, like, time out. Why can't you treat people with bipolar with the same kindness you treat people with autism or ADHD? Like, why? I mean, I remember as a bipolar patient always feeling that way. I always felt like in medical communities, at conferences, folks with autism, folks with ADHD, they were like the special. They were precious. They were the precious ones. Us with the bipolar and the schizophrenia, we were the bad ones. Oh, they're the ones they make Criminal Minds episodes about. Yeah, enough with that. That's what I want to advocate for bipolar. Like, treat us all as sweet, precious people, because we all have probably gone through some trauma and we're still that little inner child looking for help. Yeah, I just don't think the treatment towards people with bipolar is even fair or kind or something that I think is healthy. I don't think it's a good way to treat people. This way, they treat you kindly. Okay, so that's one trauma. That would be one trauma with the misdiagnosis, all the meds that I was forced to take that didn't work. At a certain point, even my therapist, she had gone from saying I had type 1 bipolar to type 2 bipolar, to then the next week saying maybe I just have a great imagination, to then saying that I had bipolar NOS, not on spectrum. She was refusing to ever let me get rid, like I had to be bipolar for her. I had to be bipolar. So, yeah, so I was a bipolar patient for the majority of my time as a bipolar patient, not on any meds, because after that first 2 years of that almost just destroyed me on medicine, it also destroyed my stomach. I have bleeding stomach ulcers, and I got to a point where I couldn't eat and I was throwing up and I lost 40 pounds. So I finally went off all the meds. I did everything asked of me by my bipolar therapist, my psychiatrist, and I still never was feeling better. Never could get to where I needed to go. Never could get to happiness, contentment. I also want to say, while I was being treated for bipolar, I was always being told what I couldn't do. My therapist was always setting limitations for my life. I had an actual session where she said to me, well, you're going to have to decide. Do you want to be a mom? Do you want to be a comedian? Or do you want to take care of your mom? Because you can't do all three. I could do all three. I easily could have done all three. Looking back, I'm so mad anyone convinced me that I did not have the power to do all three, because I was doing all three. I was still doing stand-up in Pittsburgh. I wasn't a mom. That part didn't happen. I was in a relationship. I was able to be in a it wasn't a great relationship, but I was able to be in a relationship. I was doing stand-up and I took care of my mom. But I had a person telling me, you can't get married and have a family. You can't take care of your mom, and you can't do all three. Not with bipolar. Wasn't too keen on me being a mom too. Like, that's something we're gonna have to talk about if that's something you want to do. That's something we have to talk about. You and me, you're my family planner just because I have bipolar. I mean, come on. I mean, really, like, maybe it was just my particular therapist, but there was a real degradation of me as a capable being, and I am a capable being, and it convinced me I wasn't for so long. I mean, I have a lot of negative stuck points that are rooted in my bipolar treatment, and this is what I'm talking about: the trauma of a misdiagnosis. But the person who left the comment felt that I was insulting bipolar disorder, and that made me sad, because I would never insult bipolar. I love people with bipolar disorder. You're my people. You're my first community I've ever been a part of or felt that I belonged with. And I still view myself as a manic depressive. I'm still up and down all the time. I mean, depending on my moods, my moods can flip still, like, not like in bipolar. It's different when it's autism and ADHD, and I can't fully explain it because I'm not a scientist. I'd like to be, but yeah, there was a lot of trauma with that, living a certain way. Also, when you have autism and for me, I didn't know I was masking. For so long, I was just trying to be normal and keep up with my peer group. And I've always struggled. Like, my best friends from childhood are all about 1 or 2 years younger than me. Like, that we grew up, and that was my closest group of friends. So I would be friendly with people in school, but I didn't really they weren't my people. My people were my neighborhood friends. Like, those were my homies. That's who I felt comfortable with. I wasn't I could get through school. I could get good grades, and I could be social enough, and I could do activities, but I'm a homebody, and I always have been, and I need to recharge at home, and I like my little safe space. So when I was in college and my father passed away, and my mother truly was grieving in a way I'd never seen. I lost my mother too, in a way. I really feel that when my father passed away in college, I lost my mother. And I feel like this is when I started masking at my highest level, because I needed to find a community in college, and I didn't know how to socialize on my own, and I didn't know how to make friends, and I was just doing my very best. But I didn't always masking. I thought I was just trying to be like my peer group. And so when you now are comfortable with masking, or doing I guess this is how a 20-year-old acts, so I'm going to act like a 20-year-old. I'm 21, so I'm supposed to drink now? Well, I guess I'm going to drink now. Whatever the thing was, the benchmark of thinking I needed it. that just was became ingrained in my nature. So also when I'm being told I'm bipolar and bipolar people do this, I think in a way I also was like, yes, and I like got into my character. I know that might sound completely loony to you, but I think there's some validity to it because I was being told, here you go, this is who you are. And I was like, okay, that's who I am. Now I know, you know? Yeah, it's been a really wild ride. For me, you know, I know a lot of people are skeptical or roll their eyes that, oh, all these people are have autism now, all these people are ADHD now. Why wasn't that the case? Well, do some research. Like, it shouldn't be my job to have to explain it to you every time, right? Look it up. Science has evolved. One, two, back when they were first dealing with autism and ADHD, they weren't doing studies on women. Women were always being ignored. People of color were being ignored. So often we get labeled bipolar rather than autistic, ADHD. We were the bad ones, not the precious ones, you know? Like, there's a real like disgusting dynamic within the mental health community and how we treat people, and that's one of the things I'm going to advocate for bipolar treatment. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of trauma in the whole picture of misdiagnoses, getting treated for the wrong disorder, especially when the treatments are physically hurting you and putting you in the hospital. Believing, having these false stuck points about yourself because you have bipolar, so you, like, for me it was always, you can't, you know, I couldn't be happy. I'd be happy, but I had so much energy, and it was like, oh, that means you're manic. You have to come down. I mean, I literally, my therapist would say, if you feel yourself getting up, go take an Ativan, go take 2 Ativans, do whatever you have to do to come down. I just, my last therapist, I mean, my current therapist, when I met her, I was like, I don't know how to be happy. I don't know how to be happy. Does that sound traumatic to you, to not know how to be happy? To like just be existing without any happiness? And then I finally get the right diagnoses and I do the trauma treatment and I learn about my OCD and I do the OCD treatment. And now I'm happy. And I remember how I used to feel when I was little and I was Gabby Benesso. And there is that, oh my gosh, you could have been that way for all these years had you had the right diagnoses. I want to scream, kick, yell at the world. But what good is that going to do? Because at the end of the day, I feel so good right now. And so good in a way I didn't think was possible when I was misdiagnosed as bipolar. So I hope this really clears that up. I hope you know that I'm proud to be part of the bipolar community. And if you'll still have me, I still feel like a member. I was treated for it for 20 years, and I still plan on advocating for the community for kinder, better treatment, to treat people with bipolar like full people with full experiences. And it's not just maybe a chemical imbalance. It might be trauma plus a chemical imbalance. There may be other comorbidities, other diagnoses at play. And if you're someone who's always loved me because I'm a bipolar advocate and you have bipolar and you vibed with me and you're like, man, when Gab talks, I can relate to Gab. Gab's a woman with bipolar that I can relate to. Hey, do you feel great? Are you at your happiest? Maybe you should talk to your doctor. Maybe you have another diagnosis out there that you weren't treated for yet. Maybe what you're seeing in me right now is you going, uh-oh, there might be more work for me to do. Maybe this isn't it for me. So I just want to throw that out there. Like, if you have related to my bipolar journey and my story, I mean, is there a chance that you also might be on the spectrum and have ADHD? I don't know. Or are you bipolar, but they told you it was started from a trauma, but you never were treated for the trauma? I beg you to get treated for the trauma, because I'm telling you, that gave me all of the traumas that I've done, EMDR, any type of therapy. I mean, I have let it go. I have let it go. So I know this is a very specific episode where I really was addressing like the bipolar, but I just, because I have been like Miss Bipolar for so long, and I celebrate, World Bipolar Day, and yeah, I've just been a loud voice in the community. I thought I should probably address bipolar today. And how, yeah, and that the trauma was never in the label of bipolar, not at all. I was very proud to be someone with bipolar, very proud. I was in a list with Princess Leia. Are you kidding me? The coolest people are bipolar. So no, I was never ever. That's not the trauma. It was not the label that was the trauma. It was the treatment. It was the therapies. It was the negative and limiting stuck points that I had given myself. And I was not living my life to the fullest. And on top of it, I don't have to mask, and that has been such a gift in my life. So when I'm at a party and everyone's like, "Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving?" I don't want to be here. That's the truth. I don't want to be here anymore. I had as much fun as I possibly could have, and I'm so miserable right now, and I need to go. But you have fun because you like to socialize. I only like to socialize for a little bit, and then I'm done. So that's my truth, and I'm so happy. Bipolar people pleaser Gab would have got my energy so revved up, and the life of the party. I mean, oh gosh, yeah, anything to make everybody else happy, but not me. That was my party. That was my party hat. I also want to address the hat. I wear hats a lot. I do. I always have worn hats. Before I was diagnosed with autism, I always thought I had autism. I always compared my wearing of hats to Temple Grandin's hug box. And if you don't know who Temple Grandin is, oh my gosh, do yourselves a favor. She's the coolest person that ever lived. She's the most bad asterisk human being with autism. And anyway, she realized that a way to comfort her is she doesn't like physical touch, but she liked like being held. So she created, I don't want to, you have to read her book. But anyway, she does a hug box where she goes into this thing and it tightens her body and it gives her it just helps her. It helps her relax and be able to be around people. And I've always needed tightness on my head. So when I was little, I had very long hair. My mother would tie it into a braid, but with a very tight ponytail at the top because I like tightness. And then from the minute I cut off my hair, I wear hats like a lot of the time because I like a tightness on my head. I'm also addressing the hat because last year I was like, I'm growing my hair out. I'm Gabby again. So I'm going to get the long hair and go back to wearing a braid like I did when I was Gabby. And I'm going to say there's some things from Gab's style that I actually like. And I like the short, funky hair. I was trying to go for a bob. It's just not. And you're like, what does this have to do with trauma? It doesn't. I'm just sharing some personal facts with you guys. I just feel like I'm unprofessional when I wear a hat on this. And I don't want you to be like, she's not taking it seriously. She's wearing a hat. This is an accommodation. This is an accommodation. But once I get my hair cut and I can get it back to what I go for in a haircut is like I say, like a feminine Albert Einstein. Like I want a feminine Albert Einstein. I went super messy, but feminine. And so hopefully I'm going to have that. I'm having a date with myself for Valentine's Day and I'm getting my hair cut. And I'm going to go back to female Albert Einstein. That's the goal. That's the goal with my hair. Next week, though, I really want to talk about trauma related to grief. And also, if your loved one or a friend or anybody, just that experience of those final months and that year and the trauma that comes along with that. Because for the longest time after my father passed away when I was 20, my family, like I just felt like we were so like drowning in our grief. And I think it's because we only viewed it as grief and we never gave ourselves the space to talk about the trauma of losing him, the trauma of watching him get sick, the trauma of a sickness like cancer. And that's something I want to talk about in the next episode. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry if this was very like bipolar specific to one person asking a question. If that doesn't show that I'm autistic and have OCD, then I don't know what does. But yeah, I just felt like that was something like I guess I needed to address a little bit more, that I didn't go into like complete full why that was so rough. And to those of you who have been misdiagnosed and you do understand what I'm talking about, thank you for your messages. It made me feel like I definitely do need to talk about this. And at a lot of the conferences I've done in the last 6 months, people have said to me, like, whoa, I have never heard someone get up on stage and say that. That takes a lot of bravery. And thank you for doing so, especially today in today's climate. And I had someone say, why was it so important for you to get the diagnoses of autism and ADHD? And I simply said, because it saved my life. And it did. It really did. I have just been so hard on myself for so long. And it was like, oh, okay. That's why I can't keep up with my peer group. And that's why I'm at a party with all adults and I'd much rather be at the kids' table, pretending to be a dinosaur and just being disassociated from like grown-up talk. And I hate small talk. There is a bit on my album about small talk, which I didn't know was a trait of people with autism. So, hey there, autistic community. I was already writing jokes for us before I even knew. I always knew. I knew from the minute I saw the movie Rain Man. I'm not kidding. I think it came out in 1989. I was 9 years old. I saw the movie with my mom. And I was like, I'm not that level, but that's it. That's it. That's what's happening. So anyway, when you know, you know. But in terms of bipolar, I still feel part of here in the club, we're all family and I'm family. Okay. Here in the club, we're all fam and I'm bipolar fam. Okay. I'm still fam. And I'm still advocating for you. I'm advocating for all of us. Mental wellness, the whole umbrella, baby. I'm here for all of us. Okay, that's today's episode. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. I hope you have fun this week. And until next time, I'll see you next week. Coach Gabby, signing out.